Hello and good morning. This is Connor, the host of the Forge and Anvil podcast. I am a husband, a father, and a follower of Christ Jesus, and I'm doing my best to represent him well every day. I am actually coming to you from my minivan. I am actually in the parking lot of my gym after a morning workout, and I am going to be headed home here in just a moment. But I needed to do this recording. This is going to be a little bit out of the ordinary. Maybe I'll do these more often if I feel this goes well, but this is a in the van recording all about the ERLC and the border bill that went down this week. So I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of context here. Many of you probably have already heard about the horrible border bill that came out of the Senate. Now, it's being called a bipartisan bill because Senator Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona, who is a Democrat, who only recently decided to leave the Democratic Party to be considered an independent. By the way, she's up for re-election this year, and she's now in a three-way race between Kari Lake, Ruben Gallego, and herself now that she's an independent. And Ruben, of course, is the Democrats' replacement pick for Sinema. So Sinema and Senator Lankford from Oklahoma, the most conservative state in the union, put together this bipartisan bill. Now, the Senate is a little bit tricky. We never fully know what goes on behind closed doors, but it's pretty evident that Mitch McConnell set Lankford up for this. Now, the reason why I believe is because Lankford is not up for re-election all the way until 2028. So we've got a long time to completely forget about this horrible bill when Lankford is finally up for re-election. And that's how the Senate operates. Senators have the benefit of having long terms, which is what the founders wanted. Ultimately, they wanted the senators to have long terms so that they wouldn't be swayed as much as the House of Representatives by public opinion, because people can forget and move on from things. And that is a positive thing because we don't want mob rule. But at the same time, in this scenario, this is where it can be a negative, because the mob, the overall consensus is correct on this one, which is that the border needs to be closed down. This is a popular opinion even among Democrat voters, which is why Biden has been using this bill as a political weapon, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Okay, so Lankford and Sinema create this bill, and this bill is absolutely atrocious. So this bill, let me just get some notes here. This bill spends less than 20% of the money on the border itself. It provides $60.1 billion with a B dollars to Ukraine, $14.1 billion to Israel, $10 billion to humanitarian aid, $6.7 billion other, and then it sends some money to the Indo-Pacific and the Red Sea conflict as well. Only $20.2 billion actually goes to the border. So first of all, we should never have to tie foreign aid to a bill that is meant to seal our southern border. But this is what they do in the Senate and the House of Representatives. They shove a whole bunch of crap into these bills so that if we want to get a win, it's going to come at the expense of taking a much bigger loss. So this is already frustrating in itself. But then beyond that, the bill also allows 5,000 people, 5,000 illegals to enter the U.S. every single day before the mandatory activation of a border emergency goes about. So for those who don't know, 5,000 a day is a record that was set under the Biden administration. Okay? So we're talking that this bill actually codifies and allows for what is now considered record illegal immigration into the U.S. That's setting a new normal, that the record immigration that we've had since Biden's been in office is now the floor of what we can expect from illegal immigration moving forward. Beyond that, President Joe Biden would be able to suspend the Border Emergency Authority. So basically, it would declare an emergency that Biden can just suspend at the tip of a hat. So if he finds that it would be in the natural interest in order to suspend it, that's the only requirement for him suspending it. So it's a ridiculous bill that basically says the record immigration that we've seen under Biden is completely fine, and also we're going to give $60 billion to Ukraine and $14 billion to Israel. And obviously a lot of people view those conflicts very different, because they are, but regardless of your thoughts on those conflicts, we should never have foreign aid attached to a border bill. It's ridiculous. But then beyond that, and this tells you the heart behind the bill, any litigation that is going to be brought up towards this border bill has to go to the D.C. Court for District of Columbia. So it has to go to a D.C. court in order to litigate any of the issues that may come up because of this border bill. So basically this is saying that, yeah, not only are we going to approve of this record immigration, we're going to send a whole bunch of foreign aid out and only spend 20% of the budget on the border, but also if anyone sues us over anything in this bill, it's going to go to the DC court. Now, if you don't know, DC is 95% Democrat voters. And of course, many people that live there are actual bureaucrats that are working in DC. So naturally, whenever someone wants to sue regarding this legislation, it's going to go to a court that it's going to be dead on arrival if it's not in line with the Democratic Party. That's just the reality. You can convict a ham sandwich in a DC court. So anyways, so that's the bill. It's horrible. Now, Mitch McConnell, again, he put Senator Lankford up to this. That's what most people believe. And Mitch McConnell has now come out against the bill after watching the public backlash. So now that the public has reacted so strongly against the bill, Mitch McConnell has actually ditched Senator Lankford and left him holding the bag. So first of all, don't feel bad for Lankford, because he deserves it. If you're going to be that politically stupid to betray the voters of Oklahoma by giving them an absolute sham of a border bill and pretending that it's anything remotely reasonable, you deserve everything that's coming to you. But also, this shows that Mitch McConnell is still politically very aware, despite him having his occasional glitches on live television. Now, here's where the ERLC and the Southern Baptist Convention come into it. The ERLC yesterday, after Mitch McConnell's already come out against the bill, and the public backlash has been huge. I mean, we're talking moderates, very moderate, squishy people in the Republican base have also been against this bill. So that tells you the Sean Hannitys of the world are against this bill. And when the Sean Hannitys of the world are against this bill, that's how you know. That's how you know that the bill is horrible. If it's that bad that it gets consensus among political commentators. Yet the ERLC came out in support of this bill. So for those who don't know, I'm going to break it down really simplistically, because I'm a simple guy and the SBC is very complicated. But the SBC, the Southern Baptist Convention, is a coalition of Southern Baptist churches. For those of you who are new to this, if you go to a Baptist church, it is very likely that you are a part of the SBC. And most likely a portion of your tithe money goes to support the SBC. It is not considered a denomination, but the easiest way to explain it to someone is to say that it is a denomination. And it is the largest denomination, and it's one of the only conservative denominations left in America. So it actually, culturally, it has massive implications whenever the SBC starts to go left-leaning. That's why there is a large push right now for SBC churches to send representatives to Indiana in June during the SBC's convention in order to make sure that conservative voices are heard. And we can talk more about that in a moment. But the ERLC is an organization that answers to the SBC. The ERLC is essentially the lobbying arm. It is a separate organization that is allowed to get political. And it's also nonprofit as well. But the tithe money that you give to your church, a portion of that goes to the ERLC. The ERLC is ran by a man named Brent Leatherwood. I've mentioned him before. Brent Leatherwood is notorious for being against Southern Baptists and what they want. Most church members of a Southern Baptist church recognize that this bill is not a border security bill at all. If anything, this is legalizing illegal immigration. Brent Leatherwood is coming out in support of this with the ERLC. And that's not shocking, because the only other things that Brent Leatherwood has done in office is Brent Leatherwood has killed pro-life legislation in the state of Louisiana, along with Speaker Johnson, by the way, Speaker of the House, Speaker Johnson. In addition to that, he tried pushing red flag laws in the state of Tennessee, meaning if someone wants to report you as having mental issues, you'd be considered a red flag, and the government can come and take your guns. And it does not have to be legitimate claims. This could be your ex-wife is mad at you, so she says that you're mentally insane, and then that gives the authority for the government to come and take your guns. That's essentially what a red flag law is in layman's terms. That's a simplistic overview. He pushed that after the Nashville transgender shooter, because his kids go to the Covenant School. And so it gave him a wonderful opportunity to rush to a microphone and use the deaths of the children and faculty there at the Covenant School for a political tool. He did not have any strong words for the transgender shooter, but there was a leak, as many of you remember, of the transgender shooters manifesto. And in the manifesto, in the leak, the transgender shooter specifically said they targeted Christians and white Christians at that, at the Covenant School. So that was their purpose behind their shooting, is to kill as many white Christians as possible. Brent Leatherwood has said nothing about, no strong words for the shooter, but he called the person that leaked the manifesto a viper. So this tells you what kind of guy Brent Leatherwood is. It's absolutely disgusting. Now, Brent Leatherwood was one of the main people behind the red flag law push in the wake of that shooting. And Brent Leatherwood is also one of the main people that was pushing through legal means to keep the manifesto hidden. But then, of course, the leaker is the viper. Well, it's obvious to me that Brent Leatherwood is the viper, because the ERLC is in direct opposition to the conservative churchgoers that give their tithe money that support the ERLC. So if you are at a Southern Baptist church, you should seriously consider talking with your pastor about whether or not your church is sending any representatives to Indiana in June. Because I don't know exactly what's going to go down. The SBC politics is a little complex, and I'm still learning it all myself. But the ERLC needs to be defunded. Brent Leatherwood needs to be fired. There needs to be some serious accountability, because the ERLC is constantly fighting for what a Southern Baptist would want. They are a captured institution working against the will of Southern Baptist churchgoers everywhere. So each church gets a certain number of delegates that they get to send to the SBC convention. I highly recommend that you talk to your pastor to see if they're sending any delegates, and if they are not, see if you can be one. You might have to fund yourself, but oftentimes churches don't send people to the SBC convention just because the pastoral staff is busy and it's the last thing on their mind. But if you can make that job easier for them by arranging to have a group of people go as delegates for your church and setting up all the details of that, they might let you go, and you can be a part of making sure that conservative voices are heard in the SBC, that the ERLC is held accountable, and many of the other amendments that are going to be voted on that are going to set up the future for the SBC. It's currently at a crossroads. We're either going to start going much more left-leaning as a denomination, or we're going to stay conservative. So be a part of the movement to keep the SBC conservative. Anyways, this has been a little bit longer than I had planned, but I really appreciate you guys listening to my first edition of In the Van, and I will see you guys in the near future. And if you guys liked this, feel free to go to our Substack, forgeandanvil.substack.com. Become a supporter. There's a $3 pledge you can give. We would really appreciate it. But if not, feel free to just consume our content for free. It's totally fine. We just want people to know what's going on, and we want to be a blessing to you any way we can. All right, guys. Have a great day.